Okay, file to download is here, schedule2.xlsm. And really what our target for today is, the chapter is writing simple macro procedures. And so that's our content. It's not a whole lot of really new stuff today, so much as it's kind of a different way to think about programming than we've seen so far. And so the task that we're after actually comes from my everyday life. As you probably know, faculty members do more than just teach here. We got to do all kinds of research, most of us, not all of us. Some of us are just here to teach. And then we've got all kinds of, like service responsibilities that we have for the school. And so one of my jobs is I am the academic scheduler for the Marriott School, which means anytime a class actually ends up at a particular time in a particular room that's taught by the business school, I'm the one who said that was okay. And when we got two professors who say, no, I got to have that room at that time for my class, I'm the one that has to figure out who really gets it. And so, I wrestle with this a lot. And so here we have some information from fall of 2017. This is just, schedule information right here from BYU. Maybe some of you were in this class. Any of you take the junior core in fall of 2017, the accounting junior core, fall of 2017, this could be you. Yeah, this was your classes right here. So here is accounting 401. Accounting 401, who was your teacher? Scott Summers? Bill Henniger? Yeah, so you were in this section down here. So here it is, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We use an abbreviation for Thursday, R, because T was taken apparently. And Friday, so it meets every day. Oh, the pain, accounting, every day. And look, it's 8 a.m. to 10:45. 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 hours. How do you guys live through that? I don't know. So do they even give you a break in the middle? You get a break? Oh, that's good. Okay, never mind. It's not so bad. Okay. So, all right. Now, it turns out that humans, there are some things that humans, in terms of processing information, that we are really good at. And there are some things that the human machinery for dealing with information is really bad at. Now, you might think this is kind of a little unfortunate, but here's one thing we're really bad at, numbers. And you think, wow, we got a lot of numbers to deal with in our lives. Yeah, we're really bad at working with numbers. But one of the things we're really good at is pattern recognition, right? We're way better at pattern recognition than computers are, generally speaking. Being able to look at, derive information from colors, we're really good at that. And so what we're trying to do, kind of the goal here today, is to say, let's take some numeric data that we're really bad at processing, and let's convert it into visual data that we're good at processing. And so, if you look, here we got all the information you could possibly want. It tells exactly when all these classes meet, start and time, the days that they are, and you can infer the duration based on the difference between the start and the time. So if you were just trying to look at this and say, I want to see the longest classes, just show me the longest classes here. Is that an easy task or a hard task? With the numbers. That's kind of a hard task. You got to go and do math. You got to go and say 1230, carry the 1, divided by 2. I don't know about that. And so here's our goal then, is to take that numeric data that's here, and we want to put it over here into these columns and make it visual data. So what's our first class? I think our first class starts at 12:30 and goes to 1:45. Is that right? Someone just look over there, the very first one. Starts at 12:30 and goes to 1:45, which would be right there. So what we've done here is I've just kind of built this to say, listen, I'm splitting every hour up into 4 columns. So if something ends at like 12:50, I'm in trouble, because I really can't get to 12:50. But I can get to 12:45, I can get to 1 o'clock. That's just the precision that we have here. And so what I'd like to do is I would like to say, you know what, we're going to make that into a color. That's it. That's what we're trying to do. Wow, I just did it. Class dismissed. But we want that to happen automatically and for all of these, so that we can say, just show me the schedule and have it go in there. And if we have time, we may or may not, but if we have time, I would like to even give the color some meaning besides, so that gives us a bar. So we can see, I can see how long that is. I can very easily, if I've got another one in here, I can very easily compare which of those two is longer. Boom, you can see it, and you don't have to think about it. Oh, there's the longer one, because you can see the size. I'd like to give some meaning to the color as well. So I'd say, this is a Monday only class, let's make it pink. If it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, let's make it green. If it's a Tuesday, Thursday class, so I'd like to be able to give some meaning to the color as well. And we could do, there are other kind of visual cues that you could do. You could say, oh, listen, if it has a border around it, it means something else. And you can do all kinds of visual things that way. So we don't have time to get to borders today. We'll definitely have time to get to putting the color bars in, and maybe have time to making the colors have some meaning as well. So, it may be, that you kind of look at that and you think, I know exactly how to start this problem, sub. And from there, I'm not quite sure what to do. And the truth is, at this point, that's probably an okay place to be. Now, hopefully, by the end of the semester, we will have done enough examples together in class, and we'll have done some things in homework, and you'll say, all right, anytime I've got something, some new problem, I think, all right, I think I might have some sense about how to get started here. But we're still in the first month of this stuff, and so it's okay to look at this and think, I don't know, I'm glad I'm not teaching today because I have no idea how I might approach this problem. We're going to work through it today. Now, the other thing that you might be feeling is we've got a project that's due tonight, and there's always a few people that are like, it's not due till midnight, I got plenty of time, I haven't started yet. And hopefully you've started it at least. But if you started and you're thinking, I'm not quite sure that I've gone down the right road or whatever, I've got a secret for you. Ready for the secret? I didn't tell you this before, but on the very third day of class, I'm not sure I would say the very third day of class, either the very first or the very last. On the very third day of class, we talked about recording macros and editing them. You didn't know about this project at that time, but I did. And I said to myself, it's my responsibility to these students, in this video that I'm making for this class, to show them exactly what they need to know to be able to do this project. And so if you're feeling a little bit lost on the project and you think, oh boy, I'm kind of down this road and I'm not sure I've gone the right way, it might be worth your time to go back and watch the video from day 3. I think it was day 3, but it was the day that we talked about recording macros. Because I really am showing you how to do the project. You could watch it double speed, just speed it up. You don't have to listen to me, I have a little squeaky voice, that's okay. I'm secure with my masculinity. I don't have to feel that way, so that would be all right. And so if there's a place where you could say, yeah, he's really kind of holding my hand through it, that's the video to go back and watch. Okay. By the way, how many of you have successfully submitted that project? Oh, it looks like more than half. Okay, good. All right, so let's go ahead and dive then into this problem. So I think I've gotten you started here, so let's come and look at the code. Great, I've got a sub-procedure called make what? Make Schudel? That's great. That sounds like some kind of exotic German dessert. Hey, let's make some Schudel tonight. I'll just leave it spelled that way because I think it's clever. Okay, so the idea is I want to be able to run make schedule, and I want to have it to build that whole schedule for me. Now, similar to the project that you're doing tonight, I've asked you to make that into 2 parts, like a main one that does the whole thing, but the main one just calls another one that just kind of does them one at a time. And that's a really great way to break up this kind of a problem. So let's go ahead and do that here as well. So instead of coding right here to make schedule, let's make one called show one class. Show one class. Now, I think we saw this last time we were together, the idea of having a parameter, but let me go ahead and do something right here. What am I doing here inside these parentheses? This looks familiar. I'm not sure we've talked much about doing it inside these parentheses, but that should look, hopefully by this time, that looks vaguely familiar. What have I just done there? I'll get you started. I have just declared, help me out. I just declared a variable. Now, normally we declare a variable, we say dim. It's like in the body of the procedure. Dim, some variable name as some data type. But here I'm doing it inside the parentheses. And when I do this, it's a special kind of variable called a parameter. I'm not sure you got to totally memorize that that's called a parameter. I'm not going to quiz you on that or anything, but that's what it's called. It's a parameter. All the parameter is, it's a variable that's declared right here with the name of the sub-procedure that I'm creating, and it has something else that's special about it. Watch this. I'm going to do a debug.print of, I'll put some text here, not just the variable, but I'm going to say, we are now scheduling row number, and then I'm going to concatenate on row. Now, I'm going to call this from the immediate window. So here's the trick. The neat thing about that parameter, that variable that I declare as a parameter, is that I'll come here and I'll say I want to call the sub-procedure show one class, and I'm now going to give that variable a value. I'm going to say row colon equals 17. Now, this is not doing a whole lot. It's just going to print a string, right? We are now scheduling row 17, because that's the value here. But the point to realize here is that when I make the call to the procedure, I now have to give it a value for the parameter. That is how this variable gets its value. I don't have a line inside my code that says row equals something. Instead, this variable gets its value at the point where the procedure is called. And so that's why this prints out row, we're now scheduling row 17. Now, there's actually two ways for me to specify the value for these parameters. And I could have multiple parameters. R as integer, colon, professor as string, colon, or a comma, whatever. They're just comma-separated list of declarations here. And so one way is to say, I'm going to name each one. The row parameter gets 17. The professor name parameter gets something else, and whatever. Or I can just give them in the right order. So now I'm going to get rid of the row colon equals, and I'm just going to say 17. Show one class, 17. Here, the interpreter goes, oh, show one class, great, I know that's a sub-procedure. What's this 17 doing here? Oh, that's right, there's a parameter here. They gave me one value, there's only one, I can match it up. If there was two and they gave me two, I'm just going to put them in order. So I can either give them the values by the order that they appear, or I can name them. The truth is, I prefer to do them by the order, mostly because I'm really bad at typing, as you have noticed. And the less I type, the better it is for everyone. And so I'll take this approach because it's less typing. But some people really say, oh, no, we put right in the name of the parameter because it makes the code easier to read, and that's probably all true and good. Yes? Can you have more than one parameter? Absolutely. So let me go ahead and, even though we're not going to do it on this one, I could say column or call as integer. And now watch what happens if I try to call this just the way that I did before. Enter. Oh, wait a minute. Argument is not optional. Argument is what you call the value you send to a parameter when you call a procedure. And so here, I'm calling the procedure, I'm giving it one argument, but the procedure is expecting two. It says, you can't do that. Well, I could make this an optional parameter, and then I wouldn't have to give it to it, but we're not going there today. So I'll put in row 17, column number 2, and now that will execute OK. I mean, I'm not doing anything with the variable, with the parameter here. But yeah, you can put as many as you want. You can very easily put more than you should put. Yeah, you probably want to keep it down. If you're putting like 20 parameters, something's gone wrong in the way you're thinking about what you're programming. Go ahead. Aha! Aha! Did you see how I ran it? So the way I ran it was I came to my immediate window and I put the name of the procedure here, and critically, importantly, I gave it the parameter of that. I gave it an argument to the parameter. The question. No, I'm going to show you another way to do it as well, but let me talk you through it. So here's the thing. When I try to run this procedure, show one class, it's going to say, oh, there's a parameter here. I got to know the value. Now, you're used to running this just by putting the insertion point down in here and saying, pressing F5 or pressing the little green play button up here, and you're going to say, run it. But the interpreter says, I can't run that. Why not? Why can't I run? Why can't it run it? Yeah, there's a parameter here. You didn't give me a value. What happened when I tried to run it? I had the 2 up there, and I only supplied 1. It gave an error. Parameter not optional. It said, you got to give me a value for the parameter. And if you just run it, there's no value for it. And so there's no error this time, but the interpreter says, I don't know what you want me to run, but it's not this. I can't run this. So here's something to choose from. So let's take advantage of that. So we're so used to hitting play right there, and I'll take your question. You want it before I show you the answer, or do you want it after? Okay, great. We'll do it after. So here's what I'm going to do. You'll notice that this is going to give us a whole list of all of our macros that can be run directly. Guess what order they're in? Guess the order. Not in the order they appear. Alphabetical order. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to create another little function whose only job, or procedure, whose only job is to make my life easier while I'm coding. I'm going to call it the Acme SubRunner. I'm going to say sub in front of that. Acme SubRunner. And then what I'm going to have the Acme SubRunner do is just run my show one class. But importantly, I'm going to give it a parameter. I'm not going to do 17. I'm going to do row 2 to start with. So now And I'm calling it Acme because I grew up watching the Roadrunner, and that's where Wile E. Coyote bought all of his equipment, was from the Acme company. But importantly, I want it to be something that's alphabetically small so that when I'm down here working on show one class and I hit F5, which I always do to run something, and it says, oh, what macro do you want me to run? It's going to highlight the one that I want. So now when I hit F5 or press the play button and it comes up, I can just go, oh yeah, I forgot, and just hit enter, and I'm back in business. Because it will run that one, that alphabetically first one, and it will call my one with a parameter because I have to give it the value for that parameter. Okay, so that's just a little trick that's kind of helpful while you're developing. You'll forget it, and then I'll tell you again sometime. Go ahead. Oh yes, like an input box where you could just ask for it. Yeah, so you run this and it would ask it. So the question is, we do an input box like this. Let's take a look. So let's say I want to print input, INPUT, box, and I will give some prompt here, enter your name. I'll put a couple parameters in here. I'll put the title, which is data entry. And I'll put a default. My name is master. I like my computers to have a proper respect for their operator. Okay, this is an input box. I don't think we've talked about this function in class yet, but the book talked about it. If you read the book, you would have had some good exposure to this. And so what I'm saying here is I'm saying print the result of this function. There's a function. It's built. This is a part of VBA. Most of what we do in this class is not part of VBA. We're dealing with methods of objects that we're using through VBA, but this input box is a part of the VBA language. Whew. I'm saying print the result of this function. Now the interpreter says, I got to print the result of this function, but before I can do that, I got to figure out what the function does. Right? And that's what a function does. Normally, you give it, if you got some function that is, I'm not sure what a good function would be. Some function that's called, maybe just gives you the square of something. You're going to give it something to work on. It's going to square it and give you the result back. It's got to do the calculation before it can give you that back. Now, what's different about this one is to figure out what it evaluates to, it has to ask the user something. Watch this. I'm going to hit enter on that line. Enter. And so it's desperately trying to print the result. Has it printed it yet? No. Why not? Because it doesn't know the answer until I put something in here. Master is the default in there. I could put, maybe instead Lord. I don't mind my computer calling me Lord. Okay, Lord. Say OK, and then it prints that out. So it's just trying to return a value, but it happens that here it has to ask for it. This is different than putting a parameter. Now, we certainly could come in here and say, no, we don't have a parameter. No parameter here. We're just to make a regular variable, dim row as integer, and then say row equals the answer of this input box, and ask the user to type in a row. But we don't want any user input here because we want this to be able to, we want to be able to hit this 100 times and have it put in each row as it just kind of goes down and fills this in. Questions? It's a different way to get input into the function or to the procedure. All right. Since we came to the input box, it's not a bad platform to be able to show you something that we're going to struggle with a little bit in class. So let's take a look. Let's look at another one real quick. There's one called message box. There's one called message box, MSGBOX. MSGBOX. And now here, I'm just going to, tell it something to say. Hello. Oh no, maybe I'll do this. Yeah, I'll put your name, gov. That's me. I'll put here the buttons that I want to put on this. Abort, retry, ignore. I love those buttons. And then I will just put like hello here in the title. So this is the title of the box, hello. All right, so I'm going to run this, and it's going to say hello, gov, abort, retry, ignore. Now, I'm not doing anything with the buttons, but they're my favorite buttons. And we could skip that middle parameter, but I got to put something there anyway. Okay. What looks different about these two lines? I'm going to throw out some things that are different. They're different functions. That's different. They're different parameters. That's different. But something else is really different about this. What else? The parentheses. How come you got parentheses around the argument list for one and not for the other? It is a really painful answer. The question might be great. The answer, not so good. So, unfortunately, we've got to go back to the 1990s. The 1990s was an interesting time. In the late 1995, Amazon.com is selling books. That's it. They only sell books. And people are starting to go, wow, you know what? You can make a lot of money with the so-called internet. And anyway, it's a different time. I'm not sure about the music of the 90s, or the hairdos of the 90s. In the 80s, we had great hair. 90s, I don't remember. I gave up thinking about hair in the 90s. Anyway. So here is where Microsoft is deciding, what are we going to do with this language? And they've got a problem, and it has to do with these parentheses. So, as it turns out, when I do this message box, those parentheses don't give me any information. They're not information bearing. I'm saying run this message box. I got a bunch of parameters. All these parameters apply to the message box, and that's fine. Now, can this message box return a value? Yeah, message box can return a value. Let me print the result. I'm going to print the result, and now I'll get a different error. It says argument not optional, because without those parentheses, when I run this like a function with a value that comes back, it says, I don't know what you're talking about. But now I'm going to put the parentheses around it, and it's going to say, oh, I know what you mean. Put that message box up. I'm going to say abort, and it's going to say 3. Great. I'm going to say retry, and it's going to say 4. Any bets on ignore? Ignore 5. So the message box is going to give back an integer number that tells me what button was pressed. And if I have like OK, cancel button, that'll give me back like 1 and 2. Yes, no, 6 and 7 or something like that. So it's going to give me back a different number depending on the buttons that I've displayed up there and the ones that the user clicks on. So that's kind of handy. But here's the reason that we have to put parentheses on here. So let's do this. Let's say that instead of hard coding gov in here, I am going to ask the user for the name. Now, you're probably thinking, I could do this with a variable. I'll just write a variable. I'll collect this into a variable, and then I'll use the variable in the message box call. Aha, but watch this. I'm going to, nothing up my sleeve. I'm going to paste that whole thing right there. Oh my gosh, what have I done? I'm going to come in here and highlight just the call to input box. So now where I used to have just the string literal of someone's name, I've now said, what do I want to play there? What do I want to put there? The result of what comes back from input box. So before it can show the input box, it has to know, before it can show the message box, it has to know what the input box evaluates to. So before it can show the input box, it has to say, hey, what's the input box? Before it can show the message box, it has to say, what's the input box? We type it in, and then it says, I know what that evaluates to. Now I can show the message box. Okay, we'll show this, and I'll show you the problem. I'll show you the problem that would otherwise arise. So I'll run this. Not run. I just hit enter on this line. And it says, enter your name. This is the input box. Master is fine. I'll accept the default. And now it can give me the next one. Hello, master. Abort, retry, ignore. Retry. And it says 4. That's what retry means. Now, here's the problem. If I were to come in here and press comma, it'll tell me, you got other things you could put here. These are optional parameters. They're in square brackets, which means it's optional. X and a Y. I could say where on the screen I want to put this. I could put it up and over. I could tell it where to go. I can give these coordinates. I can tell it a help file. Oh, if the user hits help, what help file should we show them information from? Context. I have no idea what context means. It probably does something else. Okay. So here's the thing. If I was just getting rid of all of the parentheses, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to get rid of that parenthesis and that parenthesis. I'll leave the other ones out there for a minute. And it comes along, input box, enter your name, data entry, enter your name, so that's the prompt. Data entry, that's the title. Master, that's the default, and it gets right to here. Abort, retry, ignore. What is that? Is that the X coordinate? It's for the next function. That argument belongs to the next function. And so, for that reason, we have to say, and it's because we have this idea of optional parameters, that I don't have to give a value to everything. I have to have some way to know where does it end? And the parameters that go for the input box are right there, inside their parentheses. Now, if we're just running this on a line by itself, in other words, we are not doing anything with the return value, even for the input box, I don't need the parentheses. I can get rid of these parentheses on input box. I'll enter that. It says, hey, what is your name? I'm going to call myself master. What did it do with that? What did it do with the result? Poof. It came back and there was nowhere to receive it, and it fell out of the program. It's now probably somewhere inside your computer. If you turn it on its side, it might fall out. But there was nothing to catch it when it came back, and so it didn't do anything with it. And in that case, there is no question that all of these belong to input box. And because there's no question, I don't need the parentheses. And in 1995, the good folks at Microsoft said, you don't need the parentheses? Why put them? Not necessary. In fact, not allowed. How I wish they had decided differently. And in fact, they've repented from this. The current versions of Visual Basic, visualbasic.net, you put parentheses everywhere. You don't need them here? We don't care. Put them anyway. In fact, you got to put them everywhere. It's like, yeah, you put parentheses. You have an argument list, you put parentheses. But in VBA, they said they're just not necessary. And I think the reasoning was partially because they were afraid you might actually run out of parentheses. You type a lot of parentheses on your keyboard. And if you look at that little key on your keyboard, it's a pretty small key. I don't know how many parentheses it can hold. Now, what's the most common character you type while you're typing words? Most common character. Space, yeah. Look at the space bar on your keyboard. It's huge, because you got to have a lot of spaces in there. You use them all the time. You don't want to run out of parentheses, and so they were saying, we better not use those parentheses up. And so that's something that we've inherited, and we just have to live with that distinction. Here's the rule. If you are doing something with the result of the function, something with the value that comes back, it's not if it sends back a value, and that doesn't matter. If you're doing something with the value that comes back, parentheses around the argument list. If you're not doing something with the value that comes back, no parentheses on the argument list. No. The comment is, wait a minute, they're not required, but you can still put them in. And the answer is no, they're not allowed. I'm going to run this, put the parentheses in there, and it says no can do. I don't know what you're talking about, but it doesn't make sense to me. Now, you want to see it again? I can show it again. Oh, the rule. Here's the rule. If you're calling code, whether it's code you've written, we haven't seen how to send a value back from a sub-procedure, from a procedure. I'll show you that. But if you're calling a block of code, either built into an object as a method, built into VBA as a statement, or one that you've created like a sub-procedure, if you're doing something with the value that comes back, you've got to put parentheses. If you're ignoring the value that comes back, or if it doesn't send a value back, you're ignoring it, no parentheses allowed. Now, I'm going to muddy the water just a little bit more. And I hesitate to do it, but I can't resist. I can't stop myself. What is that going to print? This is not a trick question. That's going to print 3, okay. Now, what is this going to print? 3 plus 2. So not a trick question. Now it's a trick question. 3 plus 2 times 2. What is that going to print? I don't know. Let's see. It's going to be 2 times 2, which is 4 plus... Yeah, 7. I think 7 is right. Okay, good. Because 2, the multiplication takes precedence over addition. So the multiplication happens first, and then the addition happens after that. Super. Okay, so no. I want the addition to happen first. What am I going to do? Parentheses. Dun, 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 dun. Parentheses to the rescue. Now we got 10. Watch this. Let me back it out. Let me take off the 2. What does it do? Back to 5. Let me take off the other 2. Okay, that's what I was trying to get to. What is that going to do? 3. Why was that funny? You thought it was going to be something spectacular. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Those parentheses, they do 2 things. They give me order of operations. And they go around argument lists. So watch this. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to change this input box. Only 1 argument is required. I'm going to change this to 3 plus 2 times 2. 10, just like we expected. Let me back it off. Let's take this down to 5, just like we expected. And now let's back this off to 3, just like we expected. What looks unusual about that expression? I just told you something was not allowed, and I just did it. What is it? Am I doing anything with the result of this? There's parentheses here. Why does it work? It's not because it's a different variable. It's not because of the space. It's not even because it's a number. Watch this. Nephi. Works fine. And the answer is that when it sees this with these parentheses, it goes, oh, those are, it's really hard to see from where you're sitting, but these are a different kind of parentheses. These are the kind of parentheses that bind together for order of operations, not the kind of parentheses that go around argument list. Can you see the difference? Do you see the difference? Should I zoom in to help you see the difference? The difference is right here. It's not the space. It's the comma. As soon as I put a comma in here and put something else, even if it's just an empty string, as soon as I put the comma in there, this is no longer a single expression. And the only way for these parentheses to be interpreted is that's an argument list. Those are parentheses around an argument list. They're not allowed. And so when there's only a single argument, you can put parentheses around the argument list even if you're not doing anything with the return value, because it's not an argument list, it's just an argument. And it sees it as just a single value. And so you can spend your whole life, well, not your whole life, you can spend a good portion of your coding life putting parentheses around, you're making a call and only putting, if it's only one argument, you just think the parentheses always go there. I always put parentheses around it. And as soon as you put that comma in there, it just quits working. And it's so painful. And we just spent 10 minutes talking about that. And if they had just said put parentheses everywhere, I wouldn't have said anything. And you wouldn't have to worry about it. So this is a place where VBA is kind of unfortunately wrong. And maybe wrong is too hard. They made this design decision. There was a reason they made it. Our lives, everyone's life would be better if it was just parentheses everywhere. Okay. I think I've said it as much as I can possibly say about this today. You'll forget, many of you, and we'll cover it again in times to come. But we've got a lot to work to do, and we're halfway through class. Okay, so we haven't even done anything with our project here. Now, here's now what we're trying to accomplish. We are trying to say, I want to be able to automatically put these color bars in place. And so to do that, I've got only the data that's here, and I got to figure out where to put this. I'm going to have to figure out the first row that I'm going to color, or the first cell, the first column. I know the row because it's the row that my data is on. I got to figure out the first column, the start column of where this, and I got to figure out the end column. And what do I have to work with? How am I going to figure it out? Someone tell me in English how I'm going to figure out which column to start on. Don't have to tell me the whole thing. You can just get me started. You have a thought, or is it a question? Thought? Go ahead. Okay, so the suggestion here is to say, listen, you're not really working in hours here because a column is only 15 minutes wide. And so why don't we take the hours and multiply them by 15, and multiply them by 4, which will give us now, if I've got, 3 hours, that'll be, columns wide. So I think that's a pretty good idea. We're saying, listen, we've got kind of two different scales here. We've got hours, and then we've got columns, and it's kind of a 4-to-1 ratio. Trouble is, we've also got minutes. And minutes is going to be every 15 minutes goes to one column, whereas every column goes to a quarter of an hour. And so it's a little bit different. So you're right. I think that would be one way to approach it. I think I want to think in terms of hours rather than in terms of columns. And so let's start off by figuring out what our starting hour is. Just the hour. And we've got a time here, it's like 12:30 or whatever. I want to go just to the hour. So let's declare a variable. Oh, shoot. And we don't have a good name for our worksheet. So let's start off by declaring a variable for the worksheet. So dim s as a worksheet. Let's set s equal to worksheets. S-H-E-E-T-S. Which worksheet do I want? One called sheet 1. And just for clarity, I'm going to say this workbook. If I don't say this workbook in front of my worksheets collection, which worksheet am I talking about? There could be multiple worksheets collections open in Excel. Which one am I talking about? The active. Yeah, it's the active. It's the worksheet collection on the active workbook. But here I'm saying, no, I'm talking about this workbook, the one that's got the code in it. Okay. So now, I'm going to declare a variable dim start hour as, talk to me about data type. What data type should it be? Int's pretty good. That would be negative 32,000 to positive 32,000. Probably overkill. What's my next smaller integer type? No, there's none called short in VBA. Double is huge. Not single, that's floating point number. I just want the hour. Byte, yeah, byte. So byte, the range is 0 to 255. How many hours do I have? 24, 0 to 23. So I think I'm good for that. So let's call it byte. Okay, while we're at it, let's declare a couple more variables I know we're going to need, even though we haven't talked about them yet. Let's dim start minute. Maybe just start min. Also as byte, or as Butte. Anyone from Montana? B-Y-T-E. And then let's also dim a start call. So we're going to look at our data, and we're going to look at our data, and we're going to figure out what the minute is, what the hour is, and then we're going to figure out what is the column that hour and minute get us to. Question? Oh yeah, so the question is, can we use byte? And the answer is so what I'm doing with the start minute is I'm looking here and I'm saying the start hour for this is 12, the start minute for this is 30. And so I've got 60 different minutes, and byte goes to 255. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room in byte. And the truth is I could probably get by with byte for even my column. But just as a rule of thumb, I say, listen, if it's a column reference, I want a data type that could work for any column. And so I'm going to use integer. There's 16,000 columns, and I can go up to 32,000 with integer, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Whew. Now, here's the part where you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? How are we going to figure this out? Let's start off just by figuring out what our start hour is. Now, so what I have is I've got a string. In fact, if we look at this, these are not dates. We have dates in Excel, right? Where the cell is actually formatted. That's not this. This is a string. And you can tell right here, because I think when I generated this data, I did something wrong, because there's 13:45 p.m. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, 1:45 p.m. makes sense, or 13:45 makes sense, but anyway, that's what we have there. So that's not an Excel type. That's just a string characters. That's fine. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to try to say, I'm just going to duplicate that right here, 12:30 p.m. Now, I'm trying to calculate the hour off of this. How am I going to do it? Give me an English language algorithm to do that. Tell me, what can I do to get the hour? Just the hour. Go ahead. Okay, so I could find where the colon is, take everything before the colon. That would work. Sometimes people say the first two characters. That doesn't work because I got some that start at 8 o'clock and there's not a 0 in front of the 8, and so, yeah, so that's good. I could say, you know what? Let's look at the colon, take everything before the colon. Other thoughts? I can't think of another way to do it, in English. So, and we could do it that way, but there's a neat little trick here. So watch this. This is a string right now, but I can convert this cdate, convert to date. There's a function built into VBA called cdate, which is convert to date. And what convert to date does is it looks at a string, or anything really, it could be a number, and it says, I want to try to understand that as a date. So now let's look at what this actually sends back when I hit enter. What did that do? Oh yeah, we're going to a date, 12:30 and 0 p.m. I mean, it looked at 12:30 p and went, oh, I can figure that out. Huh, I figured that out. It's a date. You seem dissatisfied with that, no? Okay. All right. So once it's a date, oh, watch this. There's other functions, again, built into VBA, hour, H-O-U-R, that I can say, give me the hour of that date, and that will give me the 12. There's also one called minute, which will become handy to us in just a minute. But remember, the philosophy behind VBA, unusual use of parentheses aside, the philosophy about VBA is we want to try to make this easy for you. And if you've given me something that doesn't quite make sense, I'm going to try to figure out what you meant. Most languages don't do that. VBA does that. So watch this. I'm going to get rid of the convert to date part of this. Now, I'm asking for the hour of this string. Does a string have an hour? A string doesn't have an hour. This should fail. I'll make it fail. Put an X in there. That's no time. I don't know what you're talking about. I do not know what you're talking about. But if I get rid of that X, internally the interpreter goes through that same quandary. It says, you want the hour of a string? The string doesn't have an hour. Dates have hours. Then it goes, oh, wait a minute. I wonder if I could convert this string into a date. Let me try that. And even though you didn't tell it to do it, it will do that automatically. And so it will still give us the 12, even without expressly making it into the date. That makes some people, experienced programmers, very uncomfortable. It did something I didn't tell it to do. It makes beginning programmers happy. Oh, look at that. It did it. It makes me happy too. I'm kind of glad for that because this example got a little bit easier. Okay, so now here's what I'm going to do. I am going to say that I want to, let's see, I've set S equal to that. I'm going to say my start, S-T-A-R-T, my start hour is equal to hour, extract the hour off of, now what do I put here? I want this to happen off of a particular row. I'll get started. S dot cells. So the worksheet, I'm only looking at the particular worksheet here, the worksheet called sheet 1. S dot cells, I'm going to have 2 arguments in here. I'm looking at a particular cell. You can tell me, do you want to either tell me the row I put for the row or tell me the column? I'll take either one first. I don't care. Someone tell me, what do I put in here? Row what? It's not row 2 because this has to work for any row. It's row. Your boat? It is row. That's what it is, right? Because I have a variable here called row. And whenever I call show one class, I've got to give a number to that, and that is going to be the variable that holds the row I'm interested in. And so this is going to be row. The variable named row is going to give a value to the parameter, which is also named row. That's kind of nice. What goes here? Now, there is no variable called call, C-O-L. It'd be nice if there was, but there's not. What is it? Someone look at it and tell me. 9? Are you speaking German? Oh, it is column number 9. That's right. Okay, good. Sorry. I'm going to tell you. 9. Or, if you want to, you can put in the letter I. I don't think we've done this before, but cells, takes an integer, but it's also happy for the column to take a column letter specification. And so this actually makes your code quite a bit more readable here to say, oh, that's column I. You don't have to sing the song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Oh, I. Okay. Oh, I think that's going to do it. We are now scheduling row number whatever. That's fine. I'll leave that there. And now debug.print, debug.print, start hour, colon, space, concatenate with start hour. I just want to be able to see the start hour that we're dealing with. Start hour, H-O-U-R. Okay, so I'm going to send it row number 2, right? That's what I'm looking at up here. When I run this, it's going to send a 2 in there. And row number 2 starts at 12:30. So I'm expecting this to give me 12. So let me go ahead and run this and press F5. Oh, no, you can't run this one. There's no parameter. But you're going to run this one. That's what I'll do. That's kind of confusing because it put right in the middle of something else that was up there. So we'll try it again. Run. Variable defined. What have I done? S-T-A-R-T, hour. I had a 5 somewhere. I don't see it. Where is it? Oh, there it is right there. I hit the 5. What happened when the 5 key is right next to the F5 key? F5. There we go. So now scheduling row 2, and we've got the right start hour. This is thrilling. Let's do start minute. Start min. Oops. And I just got it, that's just the next column. It's, oh no, it's the same column. But instead of hour, it is, can you guess? Any guesses? My NUTE, minute. That should give me the minute. Oh, this was the easy part. Now, we've got to figure out the start column. Not so easy. I'll go ahead and put minute in here for me. I think. Start min. Start min. Is there a question there or a comment? Nope. Oh, what the heck, I'll run it just for kicks. Should give me 1230. Give me 1230. I like it. How are we going to get the starting column now? Oof. Here's what I've got. I got a 12 and I got a 30. And I got to figure out the starting column. You know what might be a little bit easier? Let's not start with 1230. Let's start with 8. I think the record on row number 3 is 8. So I'll run this. And sure enough, we got starting row 8. That's the beginning of our schedule. Nothing happens before 8 o'clock, at least in the world of the Marriott School. There are some classes that start before 8 o'clock. That's crazy. 8 o'clock is crazy. Anyone taking a class that starts before 8? There's stat classes out there? Oh, yeah. I took Book of Mormon, second half of Book of Mormon at 7 o'clock when I was a student here. Anyway, okay. I forgot what we're doing. Oh, we're trying to calculate now what the column is. So 8's just a little easier to start with because it's our very first column. So we've got an 8. In start hour, we've got an 8, and in start minute, it's a 0, so that doesn't even affect us right now. We've got to convert 8 into column O, but I don't want to go to the O because I want to go to the number, the column number. It'll be a little easier to work with, I think, here. So that's going to be column number 15. So, any ideas? Any thoughts on an algorithm in English? How to convert an 8 into 15 in such a way that it might actually be helpful for the other ones. I mean, you could say, oh, just, plus 7 or something. But it's not plus 7. It's not the answer because 12 is not going to be 12 plus 7 to get to the right column. So what is it? Any thoughts? Anything about the structure here that we might be able to think about to simplify things? Go ahead.
I mean, we can go column O start.
So column O is really where we're starting. All this stuff that happens before column O, kind of incidental. And in fact, what's really good about this, let's suppose we decide we want to put another column in there. If we put another column before O, that thing's going to shift over, and this is going to be a nightmare if we've kind of hard-coded this. So let's actually give ourselves kind of another value that we can work with called the, let's call it the first column. And so I'm going to come back into my code, and we're going to make a new variable called first column. But this variable is going to be a different kind of variable. What's it? Someone tell me what a variable is. I want to hear 3 parts of what a variable is. A variable is A. You can give me any part of the 3 that you want. Say it again. It's a location in memory with a name and a type. Yeah, it's a location in memory with a name and a type. There's another thing besides a variable that is a location in memory with a name and a type. It's called a constant. I think we talked about it very briefly, but let's look at it again right here. C-O-N-S-T. Instead of dim, it's const. And then I give it a name. What did I say? First call? First call. I can give it a type as byte. Now here's the strange part. Equals 15. A constant is exactly like a variable, except that when I give it its value, I'm done changing it. I give it its value at the same line that I declare the constant. It allocates a place in memory. It gives it a name. It assigns the type to it. And then it puts a value in it. If later I try to say first call equals something else, the interpreter will say, no. You're not allowed to change the value of a constant. And you can change the value of a constant, but just not while the program is running. Right? You have to come in at the code to be able to change the value of the constant. Okay, so now let's go figure out what the start column is. So I've got this here, this 15. So I've got my start minute, my start hour. I'm going to say my start call is equal to my first call plus. Okay, so now I'm saying we're already going to get us over to column 15 before we even think about the start hour. And the nice thing is if I put an extra column of data in there, I can just change the constant to 16, and all the rest of my code is just going to kind of flow through, because now I'm just going to refer to the first call, underscore in there. Okay, so now all I have to do here is say, oh, wait a minute, 8 has to go down to a 0. 9 has to go down to what? Well, remember, it's not 1 because an hour isn't, it's 4 wide. So a 9 has to go down to, this one is 0. So this one is 4. The next one is 8, 16, 32. So if 8 has to go down to 0, let's start there. So I'm going to say my start hour, start underscore hour, minus 8. Now, it probably really makes sense for us to say, we've got a start column and we've got a first column. Maybe we should have a first hour. What's the first hour on the schedule and assign that to 8? Here's the problem. As soon as we do that, it kind of mentally, it takes us 2 hops to get there. You got to look at the variable and think, oh, that's 8. And so disclaimer here, I probably should make that as a constant, just like I'm doing before, but I'm going to leave it here for the example because it will require less brain power to understand this example if I leave that as an 8. But I'm saying, take our start hour and subtract 8 off of it. That's going to bring 8 back down to 0. It's going to bring 9 to 1. It's not quite right yet, but we've got to start. I'm going to go ahead and put this in parentheses. Now, what am I going to do here to convert a 0 to 0, a 1, which is 9 minus 8, to 4, a 2 to 8, a 3 to 12? What do I do? Times by 4. So I'm going to take that number and I'm going to multiply this by 4. And so now when my start hour is 8, inside the parentheses goes to 0 times 4 is still 0. I'm right at the place I want to be. 15 plus that number gets me right to the column I want to start with. When it's a 9, I got 9 minus 8 is 1, times 4 is 4. That's going to get me, plus my 15 is going to get me to the next hour. So this is going to get me to the hour just right. Oh, I love it. So now let's see what we're getting for the start column. I'm going to print my start column here as well. Start, call, and start call. All right. I think I'm still looking at my 8. Am I looking at my 8 o'clock hour? Yeah, I'm on row 3. That's my 8 o'clock hour. I'm going to run this and see what I'm getting with my start column. I'm expecting to see 15 for that start column. Oh, and that looks wonderful. Now, I haven't addressed the minutes yet. So let's go to column 12, or to starting on at 12:30. So I'm going to come back to row number 2 and run. And so now that's given me at 12:30, it's saying start at 31. What's 31? Let's see. Z is 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. That's 31. My 12:30 right now is saying start at 12. Why? Because right now my code only anticipates the hour. So what do I have to do with 12:30? Okay, so if I got a 30, I've got to increment by what? Say it louder. Yeah, divided by 15. If I've got 30, I want to go down to 2. If I've got 15, I want it to be 1. If I've got 0, I want it to be 0. What's 0 divided by 15? Still 0. 45, I want it to go to 3. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on here plus, where's my plus? Oh yeah, it's plus start minute, start min divided by 15. And that should give me the column as 33, which is what I'm after. Let's see if it does. 33. I've got my start column. One day years ago, I asked my students, how can I make this class better? And they said to me, Professor Allen, this is the best class we've ever had. We can't. I said, well, pretend that you would think you could make it better. And here's what they said. The most common answer was, you just show us what to do all day long, what we would give for an in-class exercise. I don't do it very often, but I'm going to do it right now. In-class exercise, 5 minutes. Give me an end time. We just calculated start time. Give me an end time. So give me an end minute end hour, end column. And not a time, end column. Go. I'm starting a timer. I may even pause the recording. That'd be great on the video. Just sitting here watching the timer. 5-minute timer. Go. Okay, how many of you think I actually got it to go? Oh, maybe almost a third. How many think I'm close, a little more time, I think I could have got it? And how many are going, what happens if you withdraw from the class? Does it stay in your transcript? The answer is yes at this point. You get a W on your transcript. But you could come see me next semester and we can try it again. Okay. So, let's take a look at what I did. I'm going to see if I can see a little more of what's going on here. Okay, I'm not quite there. What I did was I just copied, and I'm going to move my dims. Oh, I got 2 dim S's, which I shouldn't have. I just duplicated the code and said, you know what, this is so close. All I have to do is change my start to end, and change start to end everywhere, and change the column I'm looking at. Instead of column I, look in column J, and I should have just what I'm after. But a little interesting thing. Let's run it and see what we got. So I'm going to run this and see what I get for my ending column. End column is 38 when I'm looking at 12:30. My ending column. What's the ending time for this one? 1:45. So 1:45 ends here, which is column number. I don't know. Alt F11. Let me just ask for the active cells column. Is 37. And what did I calculate? I calculated 38. And the reason is that I'm starting in a block. And if I look at just, let's suppose I had a class that was just 15 minutes. It started right here at 12 and went to 12:15. How many blocks does that take? Yeah, just one block. The starting block and the ending block is the same, even though they're 15 minutes apart, because that's how wide they are. And so my ending block, with that same calculation, is always going to be 1 too high. So my ending column. So I'm just going to say ending column. I'm going to take whatever I calculated. I'm going to subtract 1 off the end, and that will scale that back. And this is just because my columns are 15 minutes wide, and when I start, it's the left side of a column I'm talking about, and when I end, it's the right side of a column that I'm talking about. And so that's why we got to subtract 1 off of it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, 9:16. Oh, yeah. So the question is, how are we going to handle a partial column? And the answer is, we're going to handle it however it happens to handle it by default. This whole example is based on the assumption that things only happen on the quarter hour. We could. And when we can't color half of a cell. If we wanted to do that, we could make more cells per hour. We could put 60 cells per hour, and then they could be really small, and we could really get a lot more precise that way. But we're just doing a little bit router here. And we've got less than 5 minutes. We haven't even colored a cell yet. Let's get down to business. So I've got a start column. I've got an ending column. So let me do this. Watch this. We've worked with ranges quite a bit, but I don't think we've seen this way to work with a range. I'm going to say range, and normally we put a string argument inside the parentheses. Not today. I'm going to put 2 arguments, and neither of them are going to be strings. I'm going to put 2 cells in here. When I say range and put 2 cells in, it goes, oh, you want a multi-cell range that starts in the first cell and ends in the second cell. So I've got a worksheet s.cells, row number, column number, not call, column number, start call. That's what we went through all this work to figure out what column the bar is supposed to start in. Start call, and that is a cell. A particular sheet, out of all the cells, I want a given row and a given column. That's the starting. I don't have to go to value or anything here because I just want that range. My ending column, I'm just going to change that to end call. Row is the same. This now is a reference to a multi-cell range that I got to by plugging in 2 different cells. And now all I want to do is change the color of it. Trouble is, a range doesn't have a color. A range has an interior that has a color. So I'm going to say dot interior, dot color equals, there's like 16.5 million colors, almost 17 million colors. I can just put my favorite number we talked about, 666, a nice deep red in there. Yeah, there's an RGB function where you can say how much red, how much green, how much blue. So there's ways to get to and there's some that are even named. Like I can come in here and say VB red. So VB, it's not VBred, it's VB red. And that is, it's just it's a constant. It's a named location in memory that holds a value. What value does it hold? 255, which is pure red. Okay, we got 2 minutes to see. So this should do just one. Let's run it. And that should give us a nice red. Oh no, what's the typo? Say it one more time. Interior. INTERIOR. Beautiful. And now it's given us a nice red block right there. But we've got to get it to happen over and over. Oh my gosh, we spent almost an hour and 15 minutes doing the first one. We got like 50 of them to do. There's no hope. Oh, wait a minute. We have a loop. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, we worked with the loops. I'm going to knock this one out. Dim R as integer. For R, no, do. No, R equals 2. We're going to start at 2. Do until. Oh shoot, we got a reference to the worksheet. I'll just do it with worksheet. Worksheets. Sheet 1. Dot cells. I could do this faster. Row number R, column number 1. Dot value is equal to a 0-length string. We're going to continue to do that until we bump into a 0-length string. Loop. Oh, thank you. Do events. Before I forget. And when I'm typing fast, I'll forget EVENTS. Even more importantly than do events, maybe almost as important, is increment R equals R plus 1. Now we just have to call show one class and send it down R. So we're sending down whatever value that we're currently working on for R. It gets incremented. We pass it down. That should do it. Did we do it in less than 2 minutes? I don't have to put call in front of it. I could put call. I don't have to. It looks like it's working. Mission accomplished. We didn't quite get to actually changing the color to mean something about which day that it's on, but this was the kind of the big thing. Now we can look at this visually. Control, scroll out. No. And we can get a feeling. We can see. And now it's really easy. What are the long classes? There they are. By the way, what are those long classes? That's the accounting junior core. Oh, just if you haven't taken the junior core, you can go home and say a prayer of Thanksgiving today. All right. That's it. Thanks for coming. Class dismissed. Sorry, no more code.